Good morning, good morning, good morning to everyone. Happy to have each and every person on this morning. I am Coach Steele, and of course, you're here with Coach Steele's Finance Training. Happy to have everybody who's tuning in. You already know the deal. It's Saturday morning, a little after 9 a.m. Of course, that's if you're Eastern Standard Time Zone. So, like we always do, when you're tuning in, whether you're cleaning or whether you're getting ready to cook breakfast, whatever it is you're doing, go ahead and throw me in the Bluetooth or put me on YouTube and turn the volume all the way up and let's talk about financial literacy on today. I'm Coach Steele, and you're tuned in to Coach Steele's Finance Training. This is another session. And so we're going to huddle up as a team and have a conversation about cash flow, how to create cash flow and why cash flow is important, the flexibility that cash flow gives you. And so I'm happy to have that conversation with you on today. It's going to be an awesome time, an awesome lesson. I'll give out some nuggets, a few jewels. And if you're tuned in on Facebook, that's fine. Just know I do have a YouTube channel as well where you can go to Coach Steele's Finance Training on YouTube and subscribe. So that way, when I put out other content throughout the week, you get access to that content as well and notifications. If you're just tuning in only on Facebook, it's cool. But when I put out content and videos throughout the week, you just won't get a lot of those updates and updated content. So, anyway, we have a lot to get through on this morning. So, I'm excited about it. If you're tuning in, make sure you jump in the comment section on Facebook or in the chat section on YouTube and say good morning. That way I know who I'm listening, talking to, and I'll make sure that I acknowledge you as best as possible as we go through this process. And so on today, talking about financial literacy, yesterday I went live and I just talked about the mental side, portion of the mental side of financial literacy and why it's important that we have these conversations and why we discuss financial literacy for each and every individual person, the importance of physical health, mental health, and also having great financial health, and how we have to get comfortable with getting assistance and getting guidance. And sometimes those are people who are having financial problems. And honestly, sometimes you may not be having any financial hardship or issues, but you can still get help and assistance on how to elevate your financial situation. And so that way you never get complacent at a certain spot, but you constantly are pushing yourself in a positive way to be able to do better, to be able to be more fruitful, and potentially to be able to help other people as well. So never get just complacent where you are because you have potential to be greater than where you currently are. And good morning to my beautiful wife, Yvette. Still happy to have you tuning in and listening in. The support is always appreciative. And so we're going to talk about cash flow and why it is important today, but also if there are future subjects or things that you want to discuss and talk about, feel free to drop that in the comment section or the chat section on YouTube or Facebook as well as you're tuning in. And so happy to have everyone tapped in on this morning to have this conversation about financial literacy. We're really building a good community of people that are having conversations about financial literacy. And we're going to continue to grow this community so that we can change the statistics about America and what's going on in America with every individual person in their pockets. Talking about money can be so taboo and so uncomfortable, but we're going to create a situation and a comfortable environment to make it comfortable, to make it okay to talk about financial literacy, to be able to talk about financial problems, strengths, weaknesses, progress, testimonies, success. We have to have a community where we can share that information so that we can all grow, encourage each other, and have our own economy in a sense. So, anyway, as we get started and we talk about cash flow, yesterday I talked briefly about what cash flow is. And usually, if you have income and you have expenses, if your income is greater than your monthly expenses, then you usually will have cash flow at the end of the month. And so when you say, what is your cash flow? If I have $5,000 I make a month on my job and my expenses are $4,000 a month, when I pay those $4,000 of expenses, usually I'll have $1,000 left over at the end of the month. In that scenario, if you have $1,000 left over at the end of the month, then you're cash flowing $1,000 at the end of the month after you pay all your expenses. It's pretty simple. We don't need to break out the calculator for that. So, but what you have to do is each individual person needs to determine what their cash flow is. Good morning, Sabrina. Happy to have you in. And so once you can determine what your cash flow is, it is going to help determine how you can accomplish some of your other financial goals that you want to accomplish. If there is no cash flow at the end of the month, then it's going to be a little more difficult to accomplish certain financial goals that you may have in your life. And so you have those scenarios. Is there cash flow? If so, then you can start planning and being strategic about what other goals you want to accomplish. In that scenario where I mentioned the person having $5,000 worth of income, $4,000 worth of expenses, they pay them off. They have $1,000 left over at the end of the month. Good morning to you, Mr. Reggie Castile. Happy to have you tapped in and tuning in. I believe Mr. Reggie is on YouTube. And so I have my YouTube family and I have my Facebook family. I love all of you. If you have $1,000 left over at the end of every month, then your cash flow is $1,000. What can that person plan realistically? Let's say in the next 12 months, if they have $1,000 left over at the end of every month, that person can say, my goal is to have $12,000 in 1 year in my savings account. Realistically, that is a realistic goal because they have $1,000 left over at the end of every month. Now, that's if they were just taking that $1,000. And yes, I know it'll be a little more than $12,000 because if they're putting it in a high yield interest savings account, that $1,000 each month is going to gain compound interest, which means they'll have a little more than $12,000 left over at the end of the year. And so that is a realistic goal because the person has cash flow. Now, if someone doesn't have any cash flow, they have $5,000 worth of income and they have $5,000 worth of expenses at the end of every month. If they have $0 left over, they're not cash flowing. So if that person says, my goal is to have $12,000 in my savings account at the end of the year, now at that point, it raises the question, how? At that point, I need to know, how do you plan on making that money appear in that savings account and building it up over 12 months to make it happen if there is no cash flow? So whenever you look at cash flow, it is so important because it can help dictate and determine how you reach those other financial goals that you have in your life, whether it's to eliminate debt, whether it's to invest more, whether it's to set up an emergency fund, whether it's to donate and give to other people. The list goes on. Good morning to you, Ms. Shirley Frazier. Happy to have you tuned in as well. We're talking about why cash flow is important. And that's why each and every person needs to be able to determine what is their cash flow. We need to find out what that amount is. We need to know, what is my personal cash flow at the end of every month? If I paid everything, am I cash flowing? And if I am, how much is that? And so that's what you need to find out. How do we find those things out? How do we find out what our cash flow is? Well, it goes back to the B word, my favorite B word, which is budget. It goes back to finding out what you have coming in and what you have going out. Ooh, this is so good. Whenever you can find out what you have coming in and what you have going out, then you can determine what your cash flow is. And once you've determined what your cash flow is and you have that budget, you see everything, every dollar is accounted for, then you can start making adjustments. Yes, that's when you can go in the what I call the financial lab and start making adjustments. I remember when I was younger in my 20s, and I used to try to figure out, how come I'm always broke? How come am I always living paycheck to paycheck? I finally wrote out my budget. I'm old school. I like putting it on a piece of paper. To this day, I'll still write everything down on a sheet of paper. Expenses, I like to figure out what all my expenses are. What are things that I need? What are things that I want? And how much am I putting up for savings? Well, when I was in my 20s, that last part wasn't even an option. I was not putting away to invest or save because I didn't have enough. My budget, I was living paycheck to paycheck. Less than that, I had more expenses than I had income. So certain things I just didn't pay. It was trying to decide who I wasn't going to pay at the end of every month, as opposed to where I was going to invest at the end of every month. So the struggle was real. So that's why I love cash flow. I love having funds left over at the end of every month. Everyone should do their best to have money left over at the end of every month so that you can accomplish your financial goals. Now, some people don't have cash flow. And if you don't have cash flow, that's where you have to be creative. And some people have cash flow at the end of every month. It may be $10, it may be $50, it may be $1,000, but you want to increase your cash flow. But we still have to go back to the B word. We still have to go back to determine our budget and fine tune our budget. And when you truly desire to accomplish your financial goals, something you can do is start making adjustments in your budget. And the way I make adjustments is I always look at the needs and the wants. I look at my wants and I say, what goal am I trying to accomplish right now? What goal am I trying to accomplish in 6 months to a year? If any of those wants, and the wants in my budget are the things that I want, things that I enjoy buying, but I don't necessarily have to have them. They're not required for me to have. If I am off target with reaching my financial goals, then some of the first things I'll do is get rid of some of my wants, things that I just don't have to have. I'm not going to go crazy and not meet my goals just because my personal wants and desires are in the way. And so, same thing for you. If you have certain financial goals that you're trying to accomplish, then get rid of the wants or get rid of a majority of them. A lot of people, they struggle with that part because they feel like if they get rid of something out of their budget that they want and it's not a necessity, they feel like it's forever. And you have to understand that when you get rid of a want, it's not forever, it's temporary. It's just a temporarily, I'm disconnecting temporarily. I'm fasting from, I'm going without this want temporarily until I reach my financial goal. When you reach that financial goal, then guess what? You can reel that back in, throw it back in the budget, and put money towards it if you want. But when you get rid of that thing temporarily, and let's say it was costing you $50 a month, $100 a month, you just increase your cash flow by that amount. So if it was $100 a month, of course, $100 times 12, you just allowed yourself an extra $1,200 of cash flow for the year. And whatever that number is for you. So I evaluate my wants and see what needs to go out temporarily until I hit my goals or my mark. Or another option and strategy that I love is if I don't want to get rid of wants, and there's something that I just enjoy, then you have to have the mentality to acquire an asset that will pay for that want, which also increases your cash flow as well. But cash flow is very, very important for a number of reasons. I'll give another example, and I'll go through a few reasons why cash flow is important. Some people say cash flow is king, or they'll say cash is king. But when you look at cash flow, good morning to you, Mr. Brandon Budget. When you look at cash flow and the benefits of it, when you're trying to eliminate debt, whether it's credit card, personal loans, mortgage, car notes, you name it, any type of debt. Good morning. What's the topic? The topic is cash flow is important. And we are discussing why cash flow is important. Pretty much, long story short, the money that you have left over at the end of the month after paying all your expenses is your cash flow. And Brandon, you're in business, you're an entrepreneur, so you understand, in business, you might have overhead, you might have to invest, you might have to buy some things, but then once you sell them, you get off of that stuff, boom, you sold it, clients, customers have paid you money. You look at your overhead, the cost of buying those goods or whatever the case may be, whatever your profit is left over, that's your cash flow at the end of the month. And of course, with being an entrepreneur or being in business, of course, you definitely don't want to come out even. You definitely don't want to be in a situation where you're not making any money or the business isn't cash flowing. A business that isn't cash flowing is a business that is potentially waiting to go out of business. Now, of course, that stuff that you can write off on your taxes, uh, especially if you also have a 9 to 5, and I'm not a tax advisor or professional, so make sure you see a professional advisor about that. But if you do currently have a business and it is negative and it's not cash flowing, you still need to report it on your taxes, because if you have a 9 to 5 job where you're making money, then you can write off those losses against your income, which will decrease the taxes that you're probably going to end up having to pay on that 9 to 5, potentially. Everybody's situation is different. So when we look at cash flow, it is important for a number of reasons. One, it keeps you in business. It keeps you in the green. It allows you to also grow business. If you're an entrepreneur, if you are cash flowing, then it allows you to expand your business. It allows you to scale your business. It allows you to hire more people. It allows you to pay people on time. So cash flow is so important, because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in business, you can grow your business, you can make a profit, you can pay yourself. And so if your business is not cash flowing, same thing like a personal budget, you need to figure out what you have in your business, what is going out and how much is coming in, and evaluate. It may be something as simple as, I need to increase the prices on my product because I'm not cash flowing the way I want to, and evaluate where you can increase prices at. It may be overhead. It may be how much you're buying certain things for before you sell them. So you have to figure out, what am I buying? What is selling? What is still stuck on the shelves? What am I buying? What is selling? What am I investing in to bring into the business to make a profit? And get a little more specific about what you consistently see customers buy. And it's okay with trying new products and new things, but look at what the majority of society needs or is purchasing in whatever niche that you're in, and make sure you make your profit so that you can be cash flowing. And then experiment with a few of those other things here and there to grow the business. Now, so with cash flow, we know it's important to have cash flow because it helps you eliminate debt. And so that's one reason why I like cash flow, because if you have debt, whether it's, like I mentioned, car note, credit cards, mortgage, personal loans, any type of debt, student loans, if you're going to pay them and they're not going to get paid off by the government, having cash flow gives you a legitimate plan to eliminate debt strategically. And so if you do have a mortgage and you want to pay off your mortgage faster, feel free to hit me up and I'll send you some information on accelerated banking, on how you can pay an average 30-year mortgage off in potentially 5 to 7 years. Yesterday, I went over how you can take cash flow. And I went live yesterday evening. Good morning to you, Miss Cheryl. How you can take cash flow and eliminate certain debts using the snowball method or using the cash flow index method. And there's also another method some people call the avalanche method. And so those are 3 basic ways that people use to eliminate debt strategically. But one of the best ways, fastest and most efficient ways that I've seen is using accelerated banking. And so those are multiple ways that you can increase your cash flow. So many times we do not use what we have financially to our advantage. What does that mean? In other words, when we do not use our income and our cash flow to our advantage strategically every month, we are throwing money away. And so there's a thing called opportunity cost. And so your money is potentially not only losing value when we don't put it in the right place, but it is costing you when you don't put it in the right place, and you're not maximizing your money. You're not maximizing your cash flow to your advantage. And just understand this. If you aren't maximizing your cash flow and your money, just know somebody else is. Somebody else is taking your funds, your income, and what you won't do with it, they will. And that is usually someone called the bank, financial institutions. They are maximizing your money and your cash flow, especially when you aren't. And so you have to learn how to think different and make that mental adjustment and shift in your mind to improve your financial situation. Cash flow is important because you can use cash flow to eliminate debt. If you need guidance and further information on how to use your cash flow to eliminate your debt and put together a plan, then connect with me and we'll look at your situation and see what's the next best strategic move. That way you can get that help, guidance, and assistance with moving and making adjustments. And what's interesting is, I mentioned and I talked about how if I want to improve my budget, if I want to improve my budget and create more cash flow, I will get rid of certain wants. I don't care if it is cable, internet. I remember years ago, and I'm grabbing a book real quick, guys. I remember years ago when we were living paycheck to paycheck, and I was trying to figure out, how do we get more money? I want to get rid of these credit cards. I want to get rid of this debt. I want to pay my mortgage off. All of these things were going through my head when I was in my 20s. And I remember looking at that cable bill, and I was like, I don't care about this cable. It's not more important than my cash flow. It's not more important than me living comfortable. It's not more important than me being able to buy clothes and food and pay bills for my family as a man. And so we cut the cable off and a whole bunch of other stuff. And this is back in the day when there was like Blockbuster. And then after Blockbuster, it became the Red Box and all that other stuff. So we just quit spending money at a lot of different places. And it goes back to something that you can always do. If you have to get rid of Netflix, Hulu, cable, and whatever else to meet your financial needs and reach your financial goals, then pick up a book. We can always go back to reading books. And this is just one of the books that I'm currently reading right now. And it's called Get This Baby Out of Me. And it's by Miss Takara Nicole. Miss Takara Nicole. You can always look up this book, guys. It's selling on Amazon. And the book, Get This Baby Out of Me, is basically, and of course, y'all see my bookmark and my pen and my notes. I'm reading this book. It's talking about how to accomplish your goals and push out those things that you have in you, those goals that you're trying to accomplish. And so, and it's funny, Cheryl, I'm going to tap on your comment that you just mentioned. Mr. Brandon said, that's what banks do. Yes, that's exactly what banks do. They use our money. Brandon, do you know that the banks are able to take about 90% of the value of our deposits, our money that we put in the banks, and they are able to take that money and then loan it out to other people? So they leverage our money, our income that we put in the banks, loan it out to other people. Most people's checking account doesn't make any interest. So if the bank makes a profit and interest off of loaning our money out to other people, they make profit and they can keep it. Now, if they have to pay you less than 1% because it was from a savings account, or 4%, whatever the case may be, then of course they'll give you your percentage back. But let's say they loaned it out for 10%. And they paid you 4%, guess what? There's 6% left. That's the arbitrage. They keep the difference there, and they made money off of your money. So we have to constantly be trying to figure out how to make money off of our money. So that is exactly what the banks do. Let's see what Mr. Brandon said. That's why I tell people not only have your money sitting in a savings account. That's why I tell people not to only have your money sitting in a savings account. Correct. And if you're going to sit it in a savings account, at least you want to put it in a high yield interest savings account. And yes, Brandon, a certain portion should be there. Emergency fund. The rest of it should be invested in other places where it's making potentially 10 to 12% annually. So, speaking of a high yield interest savings account, let me see if I can put y'all on a little of my business. So, because Brandon mentioned savings account, let me give an example. Because most people, once again, this is piggybacking on the comment and the thought process of making your money work and maximizing your money. I don't believe in throwing a whole lot of money in a savings account. I believe in putting your emergency fund in a savings account. And not only putting that emergency fund, whether it's 2, 3, 6 months, whatever that number is comfortable for you. I think 6 is excessive unless you are like doing contract work and things like that. Or if you do have medical problems and sometimes work can be inconsistent, maybe have 6 months there as well. So anyway, when we look at this, if you do have to sit money in a savings account, let it be a certain portion, emergency fund, and at least let it be a high yield interest savings account. Because if you sit it in a savings account, most savings accounts are making less than 1% interest. And if it's making less than 1% interest, then that's unfortunate because your money could be making anywhere between 4 to 5% interest. Some savings accounts make more than 5% interest, and it makes a big difference. And I'll give an example. Let me go here and share my screen, and I will give an example, hypothetical. Then I'm going to go to a real live scenario. This is so good. I wish they would. Let's see. I'm not going to wish other people would do whatever. I'm just going to be the change that I want to see. So, all right, I got this calculator up, but it is only showing smaller. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. There we go. All right. So let's say hypothetically you have $15,000 sitting in a savings account, just a regular savings account. All right. And it is making less than 1% interest. So that's times 0.01. If it's making less than 1% interest, let me make sure I did it right, times 0.01 equals, there we go. 1% is $150, but you have to remember, divided by 12 months in a year. Let's see. So that $15,000 is going to make $12.50 every month. Now, just keep in mind, most savings accounts are making less than 1%. I just did 1% as an example. Average savings account is making less than 1%. So that $15,000 made $12.50 a month. Now, let's say you take that same $15,000 and we put it in a high yield interest savings account or a money market account that's at like 5% interest. All right, times 5%. All right, times 5% says $750 divided by 12 months. And we get, what does that say? $62.50. Now, keep in mind, if we left it in a regular savings account, it made $12.50. If we put it in a high yield interest savings account, it makes $62.50. So just from what you're seeing right there, what is the difference in the monthly profit? Somebody tell me, what is the difference in how much money I'm going to make? If I leave it in a regular savings account versus putting it in a high yield interest savings account or a high money market account, I want to make $12.50 in a regular savings account, but it's actually much less than that. If you're tuning in, make sure that you share this. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Coach Steele's Finance Training. We got to wake everybody up and understand that there's opportunity costs when we do not put our funds and finances in the right place. This is important. We are throwing money away every month, and people are living paycheck to paycheck. Think about this. Most Americans, 66 to 70% of Americans, are living paycheck to paycheck. And the same people that are living paycheck to paycheck are literally throwing money away every month. If we need money, why would we be throwing it away? It's because we're misplacing our money and we're misplacing our cash flow into the wrong financial tools. So if it is possible, instead of making $12.50 every month, and this person can make $62.50 every month, what is the difference? How much money is being thrown away by the person that is leaving their finances and their funds in a regular savings account as opposed to a high yield interest savings account? Well, you would do $62.50 minus $12.50. Yes, Miss Shirley Frazier, you are correct. $12.50. That is the difference. $50 is the difference that is being thrown away every month. It's a little more than $50 because the average savings account is getting less than 1%. So Ms. Shirley Frazier is correct. So when we go back to this calculator, $62.50 minus that $12.50 is $50. Now, these are just estimates, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because every month that account makes that $62.50, there is something called compound interest taking effect. And so if it was $15,000 in that savings account, high yield interest savings account or high yield money market account, if it was $15,000 in, the next month it makes $15,062.50. It's going to be 5% of the $15,062.50. And then the next month it's going to be whatever 62.50 and 62.50 is 125 maybe. So then it's going to be 5% of the $15,125. Compound interest, it keeps growing. So if $50 is being thrown away every month times 12 over a year time frame at minimum, that's $600 being thrown away. Why are we throwing away $600? And if that's just one person throwing it away, what if there's 1,000 people in America? What if there's 10,000 people? What if the list goes on? There are millions of dollars being thrown away every month because we are mismanaging and misplacing our funds in the wrong place. And I'll give an example. So I showed the example of $15,000 in a high yield interest savings account. And so let me stop sharing that, and I'm going to share my screen and give another example. So yes, if you are tuning in, make sure you share this Facebook Live with other people if you can. If not, no problem at all. No love lost. I love all of y'all all the same. Or you can tag somebody in here so that they can dive into this conversation. Let me make it a little more realistic. Let me see if I can turn this up a notch and let you all see exactly what I'm talking about so that you know what I'm saying is true, what I'm saying is real, and it's attainable. I'm not saying everyone has $15,000. It may be $5,000. It may be $2,000. The point still remains, go get the 5% as opposed to the less than 1%. The principles don't change, but the numbers and the digits might. Okay, so now I'm going to share a different screen with you. And hopefully I don't share too much. Lord have mercy. Lord. Okay, so, all right, let's look at this scenario. All right, here we go. Now, when we look at this scenario, and I don't know if the screen will be large enough, but when we look at July 30th, oh, there we go. I think I'm getting a little bit bigger. Boom. When we look at July 30th, we saw that this, I'm going to scroll over, this account, this high yield interest savings account, high yield money market account, it had about $15,000 in it. It had about $15,000 in it. But What a coincidence. It made $63.36. When it made $63.36, boom, that account became more. So it had about 15,000 in it, just like the example I just showed you. And so now it made a profit of $63.36. So it made about 5% interest. And we know that's about 5% because I just did the example on the calculator. Now, if it was in a regular savings account, we know it probably would have made less than $12. So the example that I just gave you on the calculator is a real live example of a savings account. Now, that was July. So then let's go to August. At the end of August, dividends received. Let's go to the dividends received in August. Now check this out. The balance was $15,076.88, right? Now this account received more dividends, more interest, $63.55. So then now that $63 was added to the $15,076.88. So now in 2 months, just in 2 months, I made an extra whatever $63.55 plus $63.36 is. And so we already know, quick math, 11 in the back, 8, that becomes 9. That's 91 cents, $126.91. Off of that, those 2 months, that's an extra $126.91. What did I do? I allowed my money to work for me in a savings account that is giving me more interest than an average savings account. If I would have left it in a regular savings account, we already know instead of $126.91, I would have made maybe about $24. So that's literally throwing away $100 if I don't make that shift. Okay, that's 2 months. Let's go to September. So now when we look at September, I leave the money in the high yield account. Boom. I make $59.83. So in a matter of 3 months, if this was $126.91, you add basically another $60 on there, then we're looking at $186 estimate extra that I made in 3 months. What could you do with an extra $60 a month? When we look at the average of these past 3 months that I made, 63, 59, what could you do with an extra $60 a month? Some people say, I don't even have enough money to put away for a retirement. I don't even have an extra $25 a month to put into a Roth IRA for myself. Well, if your money's sitting in a high yield interest savings account, and it's making an extra $60 a month or extra $50 a month, an extra $20 a month. And you didn't have to, when you look at this, I didn't have to do any extra work or any extra labor for this extra income. All I did was move my money to the proper place. Their high yield interest savings account making 4.5%, 5% interest. I always tell everyone, don't be loyal to financial institutions. Be loyal to yourself. Oh, this is so good. We have to be loyal to ourselves financially, because if we're not, then who will? Who will be loyal to you financially? If you're not willing to take care of yourself financially, then who is going to do it? And if you rely on someone else to do it, they can pop in and pop out whenever they choose. Government can make laws and change laws whenever they choose. So we have to be proactive. We have to take the initiative. And so I want to show you, not only am I giving you examples on a calculator, but I'm showing you real life examples of how you can allow your money to work for you. So Brandon, even in this scenario, I'm not going to keep putting extra money into my savings account. Why? Because the bank is going to do it. I started out with 15,000. If we take that 76 and we subtract 63 from it, we know it says probably maybe like $15,012 or $15,013 was in there. Well, in a few months, now my savings, I have $15,200. I don't have to build up my emergency fund. The bank is going to build up my emergency fund for me. I'm all about making money multitask, making your money work for you to your advantage so that we can focus on doing other things. I can allow it to continue to build my emergency fund because some of us say, I don't have enough money every month to build my emergency fund. Well, shift and adjust where you're moving your money so that it can help you grow it when you're busy doing other things. Or I can take that money and I can invest it in dividend stocks. I can help my retirement fund by putting more money in my retirement fund, an extra $60 now. And then as I increase my cash flow, because we're talking about cash flow today, as I increase my cash flow, it gives me opportunity to put more money into other things that I want to grow. So putting money in a high yield interest savings account can help you increase your cash flow. That's what we're talking about today, why cash flow is important. That was a lot that I just did right there and went through. So hopefully it didn't go over anyone's head and it made sense. We're talking about increasing cash flow on today, and I'm giving real life examples on things you can do to increase your cash flow, whether it's making adjustments in your budget or taking the funds you have now and putting them in places and positions that'll benefit you. One of the things I did today was, let's see here, I put in the chat section, and I'll do it again if I have it. I don't think I have it on here. I'll find it and I'll put in the chat section another high yield interest savings account that I looked at using to increase cash flow. Good morning to you, to Kara Nicole. We were just actually talking about your book a second ago. And so let's see if I can find that high yield interest savings account example. And I'll put it in the chat section and I'll explain to you why I am using this one. Free game, free game, free game. All right, let's see. Well, if I put it on, actually, if I put it in this chat section this way, it may only go to the YouTube channel. So I have to tag Facebook in there as well. So one of the first comments in here, you'll see that I posted in here. You might not be able to see it. See if I can copy and paste it. If I can, no, I don't think I can. I'll put it in the chat section later on Facebook. But the high yield interest savings account that I put in there, I actually might be able to put in the Facebook group. Let me see. I'm going to put it in the Facebook group for you all as well. And I'll explain to you why I'm currently using this high yield interest savings account. I just showed you one, and this is the second one that I'm going to show you. They are doing about, let's see. There we go. All right. So y'all should have that one on Facebook as well. So YouTube family and Facebook family should have both of them. The one that I just put in the comment section now is another high yield interest savings account that I'm currently using. And you can, of course, use that link, open up an account. But when you open up an account, I think they give you $25. But I will tell you this. If you switch your direct deposits to go into this high yield interest savings account, they give you 4.5%. And if your direct deposits equal $5,000 within the first 25 days, then they give you $300. So I'm going to go get this free $300 that they're giving me. I don't have to leave my direct deposits there with them. I can always switch it later. Probably after 90 days or whatever, I'll switch it back wherever I want. But I'm going to go take this bank's money. I'm going to get the extra $25 they're going to give me for opening it up or whatever. And I'm going to get the $300. I'll take that $325. Either I'll let it sit in that 4.5% or add it to the other high yield interest savings account that you all saw me show with the $15,000 in there. That's making about $60 a month. I'm talking about increasing your cash flow on today. I'm giving you so many simple examples on how to either make extra money, free money that the banks are giving out so that you can eliminate debt. Cash flow is important because we want to eliminate debt strategically, whether we use accelerated banking, snowball, avalanche method, or cash flow index method. There's all a system But you have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to be educated and mentored and guided through the process for you to use your finances effectively as possible. Now, I know a lot of people have been in the chat section and I missed a couple of their comments. I'm still going to go back and hit them up. And so one thing Cheryl said is that's why I haven't bought sneakers in forever. Cheryl, I was doing the same thing for a long time. I was trying to manage my money and not buy shoes as much and all that. But even with that, you have to be careful because you still have to manage your physical health as well. So as long as your sneakers are in good condition, then yes, don't, continue to go without rushing to buy a bunch of sneakers and all of that. But if it starts hurting your feet and your knees and everything else, because we're getting up there in age, Cheryl, not just you, but me, then I would suggest, hey, go buy some shoes, go buy some affordable shoes, and be careful with that because I kind of overdid it. Then all of a sudden I would feel my feet hurting. Counterproductive because then we don't want a medical situation to take our money. So good balance is good habits, but also have good balance. And let's see. Brandon said, Cheryl, wish I could say the same. That means, in other words, he's been buying some shoes. And yes, Brandon, having only a portion in the emergency fund, and I believe, Brandon, you take a lot of your other money and you invest it in the stock market. And I'm not sure, Brandon, when you invest in the stock market, is it like S&P 500? Is it ETFs, mutual funds? Where do you like investing your money besides just sitting it in the savings account? And Brandon has more in, I have more in my investing portfolio than savings. Correct. That's how it should be. Only a small portion should be in savings. The rest of it should be in other places. Thank you, Cheryl, for tagging Teresa Hernandez in there. And Takara says, hello to everyone. All right, so I think I caught up on all of those comments. Cheryl says she's a true sneakerhead and it's an addiction. And so that's one thing that I never got addicted to. I saw how expensive shoes were. And so I was like, no, thank you. I want to acquire something else. Although there are some people that have made buying sneakers an asset. And so they can buy sneakers, resell them, and make a profit, and of course have cash flow. And in this season and in this time, I think this is one of the important things that everybody has to understand right now. This is the perfect season in time, and we're talking about increasing cash flow for people to find what, I don't care if it's a second job or if there's another creative way to make money. If you have a certain gift, a talent, I don't care if it's cutting grass, if it's cutting hair, if it's braiding hair, if it's wiping windows, if it's babysitting. This is the perfect season time in America and wherever you are to find something besides just a 9-to-5 and work that thing like never before. Many times I'm counseling people and they need help with their finances and they may have this $1,000 credit card or $2,000 credit card, their cash flow, they don't have enough left over at the end of the month. And honestly, I look at some people's situations, and if they worked a part-time job, maybe for like 2 or 3 months, it would be enough for them to be able to pay some of those debts off and have breathing room and increase their cash flow because they've eliminated those debts. But you have to come up with a plan. You have to come up with a strategy to put in place to execute that stuff. So connect with someone. Don't be ashamed or embarrassed about your financial situation. If you're getting with a financial advisor or financial coach, they're dealing with people who have financial situations, so they're used to seeing it. It's not like you're about to show them something that they've never seen before. None of it is abnormal. You don't have to hang your head down or be embarrassed, but you need to be confident in solving your problem, confident that you really want to fix your problem so that you can make progress. If you drag your feet on fixing your problem, guess what? Opportunity cost. You have slowed yourself down from being able to excel faster. So many times, the average person can't count the opportunity cost. And I use an example of the $15,000 sitting in a regular savings account and a high yield interest savings account. And we saw that there's a $50 difference that person who sits it in a regular savings account is throwing that money away every month. You have to get out of the habit of throwing money away every month and being able to count the opportunity cost of when you don't take action. So you rob yourself when you don't take action. You make your situation worse when you don't take action. We have to have an open mind and say, you know what? I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn. I don't know everything, but I'm willing to invest in myself. And so I did talk about cash flow, important to be able to eliminate debt, but I also want you to understand that the benefits of having cash flow gives you the freedom to invest. Brandon talked about how he takes money and he puts it in he invests in the stock market in his portfolio. Well, that's because he has cash flow left over at the end of the month to invest in there. And he's young. So if he continues to do that over a period of time, he is going to have $1 million plus because Brandon, I believe he's still in his 20s. He's young. So developing that habit now, 30 years from now, he'll have well over $1 million in his portfolio because of compound interest, continuing to invest, and that money's probably making anywhere to 10% and beyond every year. So we want to be able to have money to invest. Having extra cash flow gives you funds to invest. And also, I always tell everyone, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Coach Steele's Finance Training, because I put examples up there. Just like earlier, I showed you an example of my high yield interest savings account that makes 5%, and I'm showing you how the money is growing. So I'm not just talking about you should do these things. I'm giving you little sample size examples of how I myself am doing it to make my money work and also to make extra funds to take that money and be able to put somewhere else. So another example, let's see if I can show here. Yeah, I'll show this example. When you look at the YouTube channel, and it should be popping up for you all any second now. When I show you my YouTube channel, Coach Steele's Finance Training YouTube channel that anybody can subscribe to. Let's see if I can enlarge this. There's a video on there, and it was from last month. It says August, actually 2 months ago. Yes, 2 months ago, August 20. Yeah, it was the month of August. It says up $400 in 1 month. This is a dividend stock portfolio that I show people, and I just continue to update it every month for people to see. And it says up $435.76 in 1 month. This is a dividend stock that I use for an example just to show people how easy it is to start investing. And so dividend stocks are basically stocks, things that you can buy out from the stock market, shares that you can buy. And when you do purchase, it's like the company rewards you, whether it's quarterly or monthly, for holding. And so when you're looking at this, they reward you by giving you money. And what I do is I take that money and I reinvest it so I can buy more shares. So when I get rewarded for holding these stocks long term, the company then gives you money, and you can take that money, the company money that they give you, and then reinvest it and buy more. And then that portfolio and those shares keep growing because now you're using that company's money that they gave you to buy, as opposed to having to just use your money to invest and buy. So the portfolio grows even bigger. But once again, go to Coach Steele's Finance Training, and you can watch that video and to get more insight. Now, this one is only 58 seconds. There's one that's a little bit longer that talks about it. It's about 8 minutes long. But there's plenty of videos and content at Coach Steele's Finance Training. You can go to the YouTube channel and watch all of those videos. Bunch of content and a few interviews on there as well. All right, so let's see. Sam says, I have a question for you. I have a phone consultation with a financial advisor, and I mentioned high yield savings account, and she said she recommends annuities. What is your take on annuities compared to high yield savings account? This is so funny. So once again, let me make sure I word everything correctly. So a financial advisor